Someone in your next SAP meeting will say, "That's a master data problem," and everyone will nod. Here's what the nodding people know. Everything in SAP either stays or happens. Picture two lanes. On the left, the things you keep. A customer, a material, a supplier. On the right, the things that happen. An order, a delivery, an invoice. SAP calls the left lane master data. And the right lane? SAP mostly just calls them documents. By the end of this video, you'd sort any SAP term into one of these two lanes, live, in the meeting. First, sort the material master. Take one material your company buys, say the steel tube in every bike frame. SAP keeps exactly one record for it. Purchasing looks at that record and sees how it's ordered, the unit, the tolerances. Sales sees how it's delivered. Accounting sees what it's worth. Same record, each department gets its own view. That one record idea is the whole point. Every department, 0 copies. And this is the real screen. Those tabs across the top, department views. So it stays. Master data. Second sort, the purchase order. You order 500 of those tubes, and SAP writes a document. The order happens, the document records it. Remember my purchase order video? I said the system fills in what it already knows. Watch the arrow. That knowledge, that's master data. And that one arrow is basically the whole video. Records feed documents. And there's exactly one place, later, where the arrow flows backwards. If sorting SAP like this is useful to you, subscribe. This video ties together everything I teach on this channel. So here's the iron rule behind the stays lane. Master data comes first. It has to exist before the business can happen in the system. And that's not my opinion. SAP's own documentation says master data must exist, quote, before any postings. A posting is simply SAP's word for writing a business transaction into the books. And you can still find forum posts from 2007 stating the same rule. 19 years apart, same sentence. When a rule survives 19 years of release changes, it's not a convention. It's the architecture. Why is it so absolute? Because documents don't store knowledge, they borrow it. Watch what happens when you create a purchase order. The supplier's record hands over the address and the payment terms. The materials record hands over the description and the unit you order in. And a third small record hands over the price, the purchasing info record, the one that links this supplier to this material. You type almost nothing. The records already know. One more record you need to meet, the biggest one. Customer and supplier data. In S/4HANA, that's one record, with roles, the business partner. You enter the general data once, never twice. The same company can be your customer in one deal and your supplier in the next. Same record, different role. If you've worked in an older SAP system, ECC, you knew customers and vendors as two separate masters. And if that's before your time, maybe you've heard older colleagues talk about them. Those days are over. On the way to S/4HANA, every one of them becomes a business partner. And suddenly, a classic newcomer question answers itself. This is why every go-live I've worked on spent months on data migration before anyone touched a single process. Nothing can happen in the system until the records exist. Master data first, always. Now let's watch the happens lane actually run. You order 500 tubes. Document 1, the purchase order. The truck shows up, the warehouse checks the delivery and confirms it in the system. Document 2, the goods receipt. Then the supplier wants their money and their invoice arrives. Document 3. Every step of the business writes one new document. Nothing gets overwritten, nothing disappears. SAP. People call this the document principle. Every business transaction becomes a document, and from the year-end financial statements, you can trace every number back down to the individual documents behind it. That's not a nice to have, by the way. That's what an auditor lives on. And here's the part that makes SAP, SAP. The moment that goods receipt is saved, the accounting side updates too, automatically, in real time. The goods movement and the value movement are one event. Nobody retypes anything into the books. The books follow the warehouse on their own. So if an interviewer ever asks you the difference, here are your two lists: customer, material, supplier, employee. Those are records. Sales order, purchase order, delivery, invoice, production order. Those are documents. That list is the interview answer. Objects on the left, events on the right. Interviewers love this question precisely because it sounds trivial and most people answer it vaguely. So where does the happens lane end? Everything we just did lands on general ledger accounts. External transactions, internal ones, all of them. And in S4HANA, every accounting line from all of this, the journal entries, lives in one single table. SAP calls it the Universal Journal. Its technical name is on screen right now. One table, the single source of truth for the company's numbers. And if you watched my general ledger video, look closer. The account itself, the numbered bucket, is a record too. Master data, quietly running the show. Before I show you the one crack in this clean picture, leave me a comment. The SAP term that last confused you in a meeting. I'll sort it into a lane for you. Okay, earlier I told you master data stays. That's not the whole truth. Watch the material record closely. Every time the warehouse posts a goods receipt, the stock number inside that record ticks up. Goods go out, it ticks down. Nobody is editing the material master. The system itself writes into it, with every single goods movement. Your document from the happens lane just reached across and changed a record in the stays lane. So the record is not a stone tablet. Parts of it are alive. Documents happen, and some of what happens flows backwards into the records. Consultants keep a rule of thumb for this. Creating master data is a one-time job. Creating documents is the day-to-day job. And as a rule of thumb, it survives. You create the material record once, you post against it every single day. But the version you'll hear in some trainings, master data never changes, you can smile at that now. The arrow flows both ways, just mostly one way. So why does this distinction matter beyond interviews? Let me give you my honest read, because the stays lane is literally my corner of SAP. Master data governance, keeping those records clean, is the specialty I built my consulting work on. And the reason that job exists at all fits in one sentence. A wrong record never stays one mistake. Every document born from a record inherits what's in it. Put the wrong payment terms on one supplier record and every purchase order borrows them. Every invoice, every payment run. One wrong record, hundreds of wrong documents. And not one person typed anything wrong on any of them. To be fair, the happens lane can hurt you too. Early in my consulting years, I watched a manufacturer lose 2 weeks over a single movement type. That's the little code that tells the system what kind of goods movement it's writing. One code, configured wrong. 2 weeks of untangling postings while the warehouse flew half blind. So when someone in your meeting says, that's a master data problem, this is what they mean. Somewhere a record is wrong, and everything built on it is inheriting the mistake. Now you know why the room goes quiet. Let's make sure you own this. I say the term, you pick the lane. Customer, record, one record, with roles, the business partner. Delivery, document, it happened. Employee, record. Production order, document. Invoice, document. Material, you sorted that one before I finished the sentence. That's the whole skill. That's what the nodding people are doing, and from today, you're one of them. And yes, there is a third kind of data in SAP. Configuration data. The settings themselves. That's a video for another day. If this finally made those two terms click, subscribe. This channel builds SAP up piece by piece, exactly like this. And if you remember nothing else from this video, keep the one question. You don't need a glossary. Does it stay or did it happen?